Good morning. Welcome back to our reading of Bobby the Brave Sometimes. Today we have chapters 9 and 10 to read, and I realized I didn't reshare your making predictions slides with you. So I talked all this about making predictions last week, and then I forgot to share the document. So this week, you can add the predictions that you were going to make last week if you still have what you wrote them down on. But if not, it's okay. Just make predictions for today. It's going to be similar to what you saw before, and we're going to keep using the same sentences. So in the story, we read blank, and I predict blank because blank. And I'll give you another example today so that when you go to make your own, you have an idea of what you're doing. Okay? Chapter 9, Football Stress. You could make a prediction right there about what you think this chapter title might be hinting to, because we know that the chapter titles have to do with something that's going to be happening in the chapter, just like the title of the book, just like the title of a heading, just like the title of an article. So you could stop and predict, what do you think this chapter is going to be about based on its title? Luckily for Bobby, he didn't have PE every day. It was Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, leaving him Tuesday and Thursday, plus the weekend to recover. Mr. Reinerhouse was a very stern teacher. Each class started with 50 jumping jacks and a brisk run around the playground with him yelling, "Faster! Go faster!" Bobby didn't like it when people yelled at him. Some kids didn't let it bother them when they were yelled at, like St. James. St. James got yelled at all the time. But when someone yelled at Bobby, even if it was a despicable person like Jillian Czar, it made him feel bad for a long time. 47, 48, 49, 50. Mr. Reinerhouse blew his whistle. Everyone stopped except for Jackson. Jackson was weird and loved jumping jacks as much as Bobby loved skateboarding. If there was a world record for jumping jacks, Jackson could probably break it. Bobby wondered if one day he'd ever break any records, like Troy Eagle. Troy had the world record ollie, 52 inches in the air. That was taller than Bobby. "I know we've been playing soccer for a while," Mr. Reinerhouse announced, "so it's time for a change, and this one will be quite a treat. We'll finish up soccer today and start a new sport on Monday." Bobby blinked several times. It looked like Mr. Reinerhouse was smiling at him. "What do you think we'll play next?" Chess whispered. Bobby shrugged. He was fine with soccer. Soccer wasn't so bad. All he had to do was run up and down the field. He could do that. During the last game, he scored a point when Swoozie, who was the goalie, was watching a butterfly. Bobby hoped they wouldn't be playing softball. Softball was bad news. You could get hit by the ball and get a concussion. His dad had gotten a concussion more than once when playing football. So right here is where I have a prediction. Bobby's dad was a famous football player, which we read earlier. He played for the Earthquakes, which in the book is a famous football team. And Bobby feels like his coach is smiling at him. So if the coach knows about Bobby's dad, and he's like, "We're going to start something new this week, guys," and it's like looking at Bobby, I feel like they're going to start football based on the title of the chapter and this interaction with the coach. And that's probably why Bobby's going to feel stressed out, because I bet his coach is imagining that Bobby loves football and Bobby's good at football because of who Bobby's dad is, not realizing it's not the case. I'll show you how to write that down later. At the end of soccer, Mr. Reinerhouse gathered the students. "We have a celebrity among us," he announced. Bobby tried to spot the celebrity, but all he saw was one of the boys picking his nose by pretending he had an itch, and a girl scratching her armpit and then looking horrified when she saw Bobby watching. Maybe Swoozie was the celebrity because she's such a good singer. Who do you think the celebrity is? Right now is a really good time to make a prediction. Then Mr. Reinerhouse winked at Bobby and proclaimed, "I can't believe I've gone all this time without realizing that the son of my all-time favorite football players in this class. Bobby flinched. Bobby Ellis Chan, why didn't you tell me that the freezer is your father? Mr. Reinerhouse squatted, put one arm out, and growled in an growled in an imitation of the freezer's most famous move. Urgh. That's what it did. I'll show you. Best linebacker in the LA Earthquakes ever had. Best darn football player this country has ever seen, Mr. Reinerhouse enthused. My world stood still when Sam Benzoni tackled the freezer and busted his knee. The day he retired from football was one of the saddest days of my life. I even cried, and I am man enough to admit that. He looked like he was about to cry again. Here's what he looked like. How'd I do? Oh. Bobby decided to change his superhero power from superhuman strength to invisibility. He would give anything to be invisible right now. So, Mr. Reinerhouse said, clearing his throat, in honor of the freezer, and because we have his very own son right here in this class, next week we will start football. Bobby Ellis Chan, I'm going to be watching you, he said, wagging a finger at Bobby. I'll bet you can teach this class a thing or two. Heck, I bet you could teach me. Mr. Reinerhouse laughed. I'll just have you take over. Bobby glanced at Holly. She looked as worried as he did. Okay then, Mr. Reinerhouse called out. Class dismissed. Before Bobby could make his way back to room 15, Mr. Reinerhouse stopped him. It really is an honor to be your teacher, he said. Then he shook Bobby's hand so hard it made Bobby's head bobble up and down. I wonder, Mr. Reinerhouse hesitated, is there any way I could meet your dad? Maybe he could come to PE. It would mean so much to me. I'll see what I can do, Bobby mumbled. He flexed his fingers to see if they still worked. But my dad's pretty busy, with stuff and things and stuff and stuff. So he probably can't come to school. Mr. Reinerhouse grew solemn. I understand, he said, nodding. A man like the freezer probably has lots of important things to do. That was chapter 9. I hope you had some predictions because there were a lot of places you could stop and think, and maybe even some connections about football or your parents being good at something and people assuming that you are too. All right, chapter 10. Fish Tank Talk. When Bobby got home, he found his father unsuccessfully trying to remove the living room curtains from the vacuum cleaner. Bobby was feeling on edge. It was like that queasy feeling he got when watching scary movies with Annie. He knew something bad was going to happen, but he didn't know when, except that Bobby knew he was doomed for next Monday at 10 a.m. during PE. After greeting his dad, Bobby ditched his backpack in favor of his board and skated up and down the street. With each shove it, as he spun his skateboard 180 degrees. Do you know how many turns that is now? If you've been paying attention in math, you can probably picture what an 180-degree turn looks like. There was something liberating about skating. Planting your feet on the deck and the feeling of the sidewalk beneath you. The freedom of flight when you got air, and the hard, solid landings when you ollied just right. Getting speed and then cruising. With skating, it was just Bobby and his board. No teams, no teacher, no rules. Casey was squealing as she ran around the front lawn and pretended the lawn gnome was chasing her. Gnomey Gnome was abandoned and I rescued him, she had told her mother. You said you wanted something for the garden, and he's practically as good as a moat. Hey, Bobby, can I try? I'm sorry, I thought that was going to be Casey. This was his dad. Let me try that again. Hey, Bobby, can I try? Bobby was surprised to see his father watching him from the driveway. Sure, he told his dad. You'll need a brain bucket, though. Mr. Ellis Chan looked at him blankly. A brain bucket is a helmet, Bobby explained. How's this? His father said, returning with his LA Earthquakes football helmet. Bobby nodded. That'll do. When his dad stepped on the skateboard and it bowed in the middle, Bobby grimaced. That was the board that Grammy and Gramps had let him pick out over the summer. The new Troy Eagle Pro 99 deck with the Eagle trucks and greased lightning smooth action titanium bearings. Wait! Bobby shouted. He ran into the house and brought out his old Troy Eagle Super 74 board. It was all worn in the right places from guiding the axles on the curb, the nose was battered from tricks, and there were Go-Go Girly stickers all over it, courtesy of Casey. But otherwise, it was in great shape. Here, use this, Bobby said, offering up his old skateboard. Mr. Ellis Chan leapt on the board and then slowly pushed off and headed down the street, gaining speed until this is another good spot to make a prediction. Crash! Are you okay? Bobby yelled, running to his father. Wipe out! Casey cried, hopping up and down and clapping. Daddy wiped out! I'll get my doctor's kit! Mr. Ellis Chan looked stricken as he got up. Bobby stared at the skateboard. It snapped in half. I owe you one, his father finally said. I'm sorry, Bobby. Bobby clutched his broken skateboard. That was the board he had learned kick turns on. He wanted to cry but held back. It's okay, Dad, he said. I've got my new board. But I broke it. I should have known better. Really, it's okay, Bobby insisted. Guess I should just stick to football, his dad mumbled. I'm no Troy Eagle. Well, I'll better go start dinner. Bobby stood holding his broken board as he watched his father trudge down the street toward home. It's an interesting interaction right there. Let's think about this. I'm going to ask you some questions about that scene when we have our assignment after we read. Bobby has always wanted to live up to his dad's standards. He's always wanted to be good at football for his dad. He always wanted his dad to pay attention to him and be proud of him. But right now we just saw that Bobby's dad wanted to try skateboarding. And when he didn't do well, he said, I guess I should just stick to football. I'll never be like Troy Eagle. Which makes me wonder, how do you think Bobby's dad feels about Bobby's interest in skateboarding? I wish we could have a real conversation about this right now. And I hope that you're listening to me and you're actually thinking about these things. Later, while his father was downstairs in the kitchen stirring a big pot of something orange, Bobby checked in on Koloff and Beatrice. They looked bored. Here, he said, nudging the soccer ball with his finger, try pushing the ball. Neither appeared interested. Rover could push the soccer ball into a net and maneuver in and out of hoops. Rover could follow Bobby's hand signals to swim back and forth and even do flips. Even though it had been nearly a month since Rover died, Bobby still thought about him every day. Sometimes he would go into the backyard where Rover was buried and leave him little presents like a shiny penny or an interesting rock. He missed talking to him. Rover had been an excellent listener. Hey, you guys, Bobby said as Beatrice circled the castle. Do you have a couple minutes to chat? When they didn't say no, Bobby took that as a sign that he should continue. My PE teacher thinks that just because I'm the Fraser's son, I'm good at football. I've got until Monday to figure out what to do. Koloff and Beatrice were silent for the longest time. I know, Bobby agreed. This is a tough one. I'm eating 7 meals a day, and I'm doing 100 sit-ups and push-ups every morning. Well, starting tomorrow, I'm going to do that. I figure if I'm bigger and stronger, I'll be better at football and won't embarrass myself in front of Mr. Reinerhouse in my class. Koloff did a spin around the aquarium. What was that? Bobby asked. He sensed that Koloff was trying to tell him something, but he couldn't figure out what the fish wanted him to know. What is it, Koloff? Is it about football? Koloff swam around the tank again. Something about not embarrassing myself? When Koloff rested inside the castle, Bobby gave up trying to guess what his fish was trying to tell him. Koloff wasn't quite like Rover, who was easy to understand. Well, okay. Thanks for listening. We can talk more later. In the meantime, look what I have for you. Bobby brought out one of the hoops that Rover used to play with. Carefully, he placed it in the water. Hey, Squirt! It was Annie. Her football jersey was covered in dirt. She looked into the aquarium. Koloff stared back at her. What's up? Not much. Well, guess what? Annie said. Even though she was wearing her helmet, Bobby could see her smile. Coach says I'm one of the best quarterbacks that Rancho Rosetta High School has ever had. Can you believe that? I can believe that, Bobby said. His voice was flat. You don't sound too happy, Annie said. What's with you? What's with you? Bobby shot back. Why do you have to be so good at football? Whoa, what's your problem? Bobby stared at Diver Dave. I don't have a problem, he said as his jaw tensed. Everything's fine. Now leave me alone. Geez, Annie muttered as she backed out of the room. And you say that I'm moody. Bobby waited until he was sure she was gone to start talking to his fish again. It's not fair, he told them. I'll never be like Annie, no matter how hard I try. And now it's chapter 10. We had some very interesting dynamics happening here. We learned a little bit about Bobby's dad's perspective about Troy Eagle and skateboarding. And then we just saw what happened with Annie and Bobby as well, and about Annie's success with football and Bobby's lack thereof. So we're going to dive into these ideas in your text response questions. When you are doing your answers, I know typing is different than writing, and I know that writing is something you've been practicing since kindergarten and typing is not, but we need to be more thorough in our answers. This week I'm going to be paying extra attention that you're using details from the text because I feel like that's a skill that some of us are starting to ignore, and we're not doing it as much. I want to remind you that even though you don't have the text in front of you to copy, you can paraphrase it in your own words. You don't have to say on page 7 and then put it in quotation marks word for word. You can just say in your own words what you remember given the circumstances. So just make sure that you are referring back to the parts of the story in your answers so that we can really prove our thinking. That's a very important skill, and you can't lose it now because it's just something that's going to have to get stronger and stronger throughout time. So please use text evidence in your answers. Okay, so I'm going to link the prediction making chart and text response questions for today. Bye.